Yo, what's going on, everyone? It's Brian and Jim here with DrinkABeerandPlayAGame, and thank God we're at the end of these LJN games. Today, we're going to be checking out Who Framed Roger Rabbit for the NES.
Released in 1989, this was produced by Rare and published by LJN. Like the rest of these, it's a North American exclusive. This is, it's another LJN game. That's a movie tie-in. And the other ones, they've been so good up until this point, so... You know, Brian, I'm feeling good about this one. I have nothing but positive vibes going into this review. I'm sure this will be the cream of the crop.
Means it's gonna suck!
Yeah, probably. Alright, the graphics. And you know what that means if I'm doing the graphics? That means Brian played this for.
God damn it!
When it comes to the graphics, it's actually a pretty decent package. I guess I'll start with the character sprites first, and they actually look like who they're trying to represent. Eddie, he's not detailed, but he looks like Eddie. Roger looks great, the Weasels look great, Judge Doom looks good. Spoiler? Judge Doom's in this? Yeah, go fuck yourself.
It's not a spoiler.
Yay! For the most part, everything looks pretty damn good. Now, as far as the actual game goes, you really only have two screens for the most part. You have the overworld screen, and you have the side-scrolling screens where you're either going into buildings or caves or other areas from the movie. So, as far as that goes, they're not really all that varied, but what you get here does look pretty good.
Hey, Jim.
What?
I don't remember caves in the movie.
Yeah, come to think of it, I don't remember caves either. Where the hell did this shit come from? But the overworld in the normal area is pretty bland, but when you get to Toontown, it gets a lot more colorful, so at least you get some variation. Overall, it's not bad, it's nothing special, so we gave it 5s. And when it comes to beer, I'll just give it 1 beer for having the 2 different worlds. Why not? The sound, again's a pretty good package, and out of all the games we've looked at this month, this is probably the one that's closest to being that good LJN kind of sound. If there's an unfortunate part, when you go from either the overworld or into either the side-scrolling stages, you're going to hear the 2 main tracks repeat over and over and over and over again. And it's not like it's smooth, it's jarring and it's a fresh restart. So if you're like walking into a building by accident and you go out, guess what? You're hearing both restart. You actually get about 6 to 10 tracks in total, so the music's actually a lot more varied than it normally is for the games we've looked at this month, which is very welcome at this point. But the other tracks are kind of meh, even though some of them I'm pretty sure mimic what was in the movie, so it gets points there. Overall, I liked it, Brian thought it was okay, so I gave it a 6 and he gave it a 5. And when it comes to beer, I'm just gonna give it 1 beer for having to hear that over and over again. Trust me, you're gonna get sick of it.
The control. Well, if you're watching this video, there are good chances are you've seen the nerd video, so let me get the car control out of the way first. It is bad, but I wouldn't say it's absolutely awful. Especially because you don't spend that much time in the car, that wasn't really my problem. The general movement is really slow and sluggish, and the goddamn hitting in this game, if you're using the punch, let me preface it with that.
Ugh.
It's so annoying. You gotta charge it up, release it at the right point. It's just non-intuitive and it sucks. That's the best way we can describe it. However, unlike the other LJN games where we really came down on them, the controls kind of work here. There's just a general lag and they're way more complicated than it needs to be. I don't know how you fuck up a punch, but this game sure managed to. Other than that, using items is simple enough, and if you do get weapons, it makes your attacks slightly easier. I don't know, there's still just something that always bothered Jim and I, so as far as score, we both gave it a 4. It's not completely unusable, but I wouldn't even consider this average.
Hey, Bri.
Yes?
There's one good thing about the punch.
What's that?
You can punch Roger when you get mad.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, animal abuse is fun.
Jim, should I start punching you or just keep thwacking away?
I have a feeling I'm going to get thwacked no matter what, so... Ow!
Know your place, bitch! And as far as beer, I'm gonna add 1 for this game fucking up the simple punch. The gameplay. Well, just like the control, it's a lot more complicated than it should be. It tries to stick to the movie a little bit in the sense that you're Eddie Valiant and you're looking for pieces of the will. Other than that, you do get chased by the Weasels, and as Jim said, you do fight Judge Doom at the end, But everything else in between, it's kind of a exploration, find items with the occasional fight scene.
So an adventure game?
Some would say this is another Legend of Zelda 2 clone.
Yeah, you know what? I guess you could say that. Man, Zelda comes up a lot in these LJN games.
I will say this is one of the few games where the people you talk to are kind of useful, and they're very blunt. They'll either tell you there's nothing here, or try searching around, so you know you gotta stay in the areas. As Jim mentioned, there is an overworld, and you can either go by foot or the car. I already talked about the car's control, but without an instruction guide or any type of information, like if you look it up on the internet, it's going to be really hard to know what the hell you have to do in this game because there's no clues given. You collect a shit ton of items, all of which have completely unique uses. Like some of them, you put a rattle down next to a snake and that stops him from coming after you. And other ones, you need spring shoes to jump gaps. So you really gotta look up what you need items for. Otherwise, you could risk using them, getting rid of them, or not picking them up and coming across an enemy you can't do shit against. The weasels I mentioned earlier are annoying as hell. Sometimes you're forced to fight them, and if you're like Jim and I, you're probably gonna die a lot the first couple times you do that. After all that's said and done, you finally have to navigate your way to Toontown after doing a whole bunch of bullshit you don't want to do. You fight Judge Doom, you're probably gonna die, you break your game, and then you're pissed off. At least that's what happened to me. But if you do manage to beat them, good for you. Jim and I, we really hated the gameplay because it just wasn't fun. We never got a sense of satisfaction, even if you were, discovering the right clue or finding the right thing to do. We never actually got enjoyment out of it. So when it comes to scores, we both gave it a 3. And when it comes to beer, you know what? 3 sounds great to me because I kind of like the idea of what they were trying to do, but why was it so goddamn complicated?
Alright, the originality. Well, surprise to us, this actually isn't even the first Roger Rabbit game. There was one that was released to all the microcomputers and the DOS in '88, so yeah, this doesn't even have that. Outside of that, the basic gameplay you see a lot in most adventure games, and there were plenty of them by the time this came out. And it's pretty faithful to the movie and all that, so, I guess. Anyway, I gave it a 3, Bri gave it a 4. So if I had to add beer, I guess I'll do 2 beers for another LJN game that can take things pretty literally from the movie. Like, in the movie where Eddie had to kill the weasels with laughter to save Roger and shit like that. Well, if you get caught by the weasels in this game, you have to do a mini game where you pick the right punchline to a joke in order to get away from there, so it's very much like the movie. Very good, wonderful.
Hey, Jim!
What?
Name 9 animals from Africa.
Like a lion.
Shut the fuck up! Ah!
How do I still walk into this?
The answer's 8 elephants and a giraffe. Replayability. Once you beat the game, it's the same ending over and over, and once you realize where all the items are, you can get through this game fairly fast. It is hard, as we said, and maybe if you master the control, this game won't even have that going for it. I guess the only real reason you'd want to come back is to, read some more of these jokes and get in the right punchline.
Dear God, no.
Hey, Jim.
No.
Jim.
No.
Jim.
What? Just do it. Just get it over with.
Does your watch tell the time?
Yes?
No, you have to look at it.
I hate this game more now.
So when it comes to beer, I'm gonna add 2 because I can't believe we just did that.
Damn it!
Overall, we really did not enjoy this game. While the presentation was probably the best of the LJN games we reviewed this month, the gameplay was just as bad as Karate Kid, but for different reasons. Like we said, the difficulty being too hard, the obscurity of what you actually have to do.
It's fucking boring!
Yeah, and it's actually a fairly long game if you don't know what you're doing. So when it comes to scores, I gave it a 4, Jim gave it a 3. When we combined all of our scores together, it rounds out to a 3.8. That ties for Karate Kid as the worst of the LJN games. Honestly, some people might enjoy this game, but I'm going to tell you right now, just look up a walkthrough or at least look up the essentials of knowing which items you have to use where. You may find enjoyment in exploring this LA town and Toontown. Jim and I, we're going to stay away.
Yeah, and maybe you're one of those poor bastards who grew up with this game and you only got 1 game a month to play, so you played through it and learned the game. Good for you, but for us normal folk in 2018, yeah, there's no reason to touch this.
Hey, Jim.
Yes, Bri.
Why did the Toon throw his watch out the window?
I know we're going to edit this, but I've been sitting here for 4 minutes now, dead silent. I refuse to answer.
Come on, just try.
Why?
He wanted to see time fly.
Well, that was worth it.
Don't play this game. When it comes to beer pairing, I'm going to go with the Pretty Things Beer and Ale Project's Fluffy White Rabbits. Obviously, the White Rabbit is a dead giveaway for Roger Rabbit, but this is a beer that's available in the spring. It's a really strong triple coming in at 8.5%. And quite honestly, I just want to give you guys something that's strong enough and has enough flavor to help you get through this monotonous-ass confusing game. But remember to drink your beers and play your games responsibly. As always, guys, thanks for checking out this video, and if you enjoyed it, make sure you give us a thumbs up, leave some comments, or better yet, why not subscribe? Till next time, guys, cheers.